All right, we are here with my friend, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Charles Cole III. Welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and you can just call me Charles. I'm not bullish on people having to use the doctor, but I'm doing well. I'm proud of you, and I'm happy to be here.
You already know I'm always proud of you, and I will always refer to you as a doctor.
Okay.
All right, and so just to get us started, if you can just share a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, what you're currently working on, just a background.
Well, that's a lot. So
I
you want
know.
to drill down a little bit, or I mean, I was born in the Chicago area in a west suburb called Maywood, same neighborhood. Chairman Fred Hampton was born. Lived in between the Chicago area and this small town in Kentucky called Paducah with my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, until she passed away. We would go back and forth until from Oakland, from Chicago to Kentucky. And then when she passed away, got on a Greyhound with my pops, my siblings, and came to the Bay Area. His sister lived out this way. Both my parents was kind of in and out of trouble a lot. Both of them was kind of in and out of jail. So my father instantly got in trouble when we was out here, had to live with them for a bit, my aunt. And when he got out, we and my mom met us because she was in jail in Kentucky. We bounced around from a few different shelters. So I lived in 4 shelters. I lived in 2 in Oakland and then 2 in San Francisco. And actually, if you want to know something really funny, is the shelter that I lived in was directly across the street, kitty corner. You could see it from the TFA windows. So it was the Henry Robinson, which is in downtown Oakland. But yeah, so did that. My parents got clean when I was in middle school. Always had decent grades. I went to a lot of different elementary schools across the country. So when I got to Oakland, the funny thing is it was a blessing because Kentucky was so much more ahead of Lafayette and the schools I went to in the town that it really wasn't hard for me. My accent was so thick. I moved here when I was like 10 years old. So I had Chicago is a little twangy. Kentucky is really twangy. Like I was country. Like I had to teach myself how to speak again. And so, but because my accent was so thick, they were going to put me in special education. And by the grace of God, and this is how flippant our education system is, Kentucky stressed math and reading out loud. So there was like this day of the week where we would read out loud, and I read, and I was the best reader in the class. Like I was one of the better readers in the school, actually. So within a week, I went from being earmarked to go to special education because of my accent to being in the gifted and talented education program, which, tracks you very differently. So my life could have been really different. And that's how flippant they are with kids in hoods that don't really have advocates.
Yep. And I remember an interview, I don't know which one it was, but I was listening to you share this story and how you were saying it shouldn't be luck that gets students on the right path. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think you just said it. One of the things I try to do, Chasman, is like make stuff simpler, not more difficult. I know a lot of people that try to do the opposite and they make up a whole bunch of words. And yeah, I just think that drives a chasm between people. But it's exactly what you just said. That was by the grace of God. Like there was no analysis. There was no structure in how that was happening. There was no checks and balances. There was no advocate. There was nothing there. And, if you're looking at numbers and you're looking at Black kids, especially Black boys, and who gets in special ed, and then that tends to lead to you getting in more fights, you get suspended. And if you get suspended twice in a year, your chances of going to prison go up threefold, and your chances of not graduating go down x-fold, or whatever the case is. Like there's a whole host of things that happens. And it's because I think that a lot of people just don't have high expectations of kids with certain types of families that live in certain type of neighborhoods that go to certain type of schools. And that's why my work has, I'll do work that pushes systems. Like I'm with that. We've done that. You and I worked in the same place where we were trying to do that. But my passion and what I really care more about is building agency in my people, like giving them the tools so they can fight back and survive right now. The same issues that they've been talking about changing in the system, I'm 39 years old. Like they still ain't fixed in that system. And I've worked in that system. My career started as a social worker. And then I worked with, youth and young people. And then I started working in education. And, I got to work at TFA, which I was blessed to do. I didn't do TFA. I wasn't a core member. And I think I had a different appreciation for TFA than a lot of folks that grew up in TFA, right? They went to college, went to TFA, and then they got a job, probably left that job, ended up working at TFA, but they've been around that. And, I always say TFA is not a real nonprofit. They actually have structures. We wasn't stressing about the budget. I grew up working in real nonprofits where budgets weren't set, things were shifting and things were moving. And the good thing about it, and people can say what they want, but this is why I always pushed our Black educators that had that olive branch, is that you are 3 degrees from any type of education professional in the country, maybe 4 in the world. Like whoever on either side is the Secretary of Education in the White House, you are 2 connections away, and it doesn't matter. And so because I didn't have access and went to having all this access, and I worked professionally without it, I was able to really utilize those networks to do the type of work that I wanted to eventually end up doing, and to take some of those systems that they built into you all, like the way you all are organized and how you look at things. And even with, I was just telling you, I do 1 million podcasts. I host them, I own them, and I guest star on them. I've never had one lay out as many of the things as you have. And so, I've been really blessed in my career. And, that's why I do my work around agency, and my company is called Energy Convertors, because energy does not have a value until you give it one. So let's recap. People could say, well, damn, your parents was dope fiends. You lived in all these places. The person who raised you like a mom died when you were young. You got on a Greyhound and came across country. You had to raise your brother and sister. You went to all these schools, lived in shelter, so on and so forth. I look at all of those things as blessings. Like living in Chicago, Kentucky, and Oakland made me appreciate people so much more in different places, because so many of my friends in Oakland had never been outside of Oakland, and they had this contorted view of the Midwest and the South Midwest and these other places. Going to so many schools was great to me because I knew that things only happened in seasons. Like, I knew how to deal with people, and I knew how to be by myself and to be alone. Like you've never ever seen me or known me to be with like a clique of people. Like, me when me and Tracy were really close or whatever, but you've kind of always seen me kind of rock alone and be okay rocking alone. And I had to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet. Living in the shelters, I saw how ugly life in the world could be early on. So it made my work ethic very, very different. And then my parents being on drugs, when my mother was getting clean, I wasn't ashamed of it. Like I went to the NA meetings. I love going to NA meetings. I'll go to them now, even as somebody that doesn't have alcohol and drug issues, because I love the structure of them. That's where I met so many different type of people. Some of them have been doctors and some of them have been, high school dropouts, but they had this story that was unifying them, and they were all trying to better themselves. And so that energy could have been negative and gave me all kind of excuses to be out here robbing and doing a whole bunch of things with people. But I used it as fuel, and it's prepared me to be what I am in business that a lot of people seem to think that I do okay. And I think I'm decent as a business person, but I think there are people that may look at me as being very successful. And I think that's a blessing. I don't agree with them, but I think it's but it's because of those blessings that I had that some would deem as curses.
Whew.
I know
You're
that was a
right.
long answer. I'm
You're
sorry.
no, but you were right at the beginning. Like that's a big question, right? And you're still just giving us surface level responses, right? Like there's so much layers and so much to you. And that's just the surface. And so you did mention TFA. For the people listening, I just wanted to clarify TFA is a nonprofit, education nonprofit, Teach for America, where we bring in teachers and we put them into underperforming schools across America. And that's where me and Dr. Cole met during my first year as a teacher in Oakland. And
And our
so
group had some of the highest growth in the country. And I had a lot of Black people. I know there's these
yes,
narratives. I had the Black people, the people that was from that town, and you know, and as somebody who was not a traditional teacher, we had some of the highest growth in our cohort of teachers. So
yes,
I'm proud of that.
yes. And so, like we mentioned, that was a lot of what you just shared, right? And I really want us to break it down into bite-sized pieces if possible, and really zoom in into your experience at, was it Westlake Middle School that you went to where you
It
met
was
your
Westlake Junior High at the time. We were the last middle school. We were the last junior high class. So 9th and 8th grade graduated together, but yes.
Can you share the story? What was his name? Your mentor?
Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown. Yes. Can you share more about that and how that really was a pivotal time in your life or in your career?
Yeah.
Well,
So
not your
Brown,
career, but your life.
no, I was in my career too. Brown
Yeah.
and Brown just retired. He just retired this last year, 2022. Mr. Brown was this tall, light-skinned cat from the West. He's from West Oakland all day. He came up behind Bill Russell. He played ball. He played in college and would have gone professional, but he was really protesting. Some stuff had happened, and he protested and basically got kicked off the team. And he graduated and said, "I want to go teach. I want to go be a teacher." And he came back to West Oakland and he taught. And, he had already been deep in the game by the time I got there, but he was this big, tall dude, man, and big cat. And Westlake was having a lot of fights at the time. It was like, middle school has changed a lot, but we were a lot older, just around, more stuff was kind of happening. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's a different conversation. But Brown class didn't really have fights because Brown would open up his class and say, "Check this out. I know some of y'all think y'all are big and tough and bad. I don't break up fights. If you talk smack and y'all talking it together, I'm gonna let you fight and I'm just gonna suspend both you cats. We not doing that. You here to learn math." And when I got to him, I still had the accent, still was a small kid, not really a fighting kid. I really was never really about that life. But I would get into it with people, but one of the ways that I would, avoid that, I would be funny, or I would, it just was, I didn't want the attention on me and my accent and stuff. And I guess I used to come in this man's class with like attitude. I really just wanted to get to go hoop. And one day, man, Brown just said, "Hey, Cole, stop being an a-hole." What? Huh? I had never had a teacher talk to me like that. And he said, "You heard me. Stop being an a-hole, man. Let me see you after class." So I stayed back, and Brown looked at me and said, "Listen, man, I know who your parents are. I know what your parents are going through. I know what they're working on. I know where you live. Like, I know you don't have a house. You in a shelter. I know you don't like wearing these Salvation Army clothes, but you get to pick the type of man you want to be. Like, you're not a child. And even though you should be able to be a child, this world does not see you as a child. And this math stuff, like you actually are really good at it. You actually can be the best in this school at it. So I'm gonna be on you every day. I need you here before school and after school. If you want to keep playing ball, this is what you need to do." And then I got the next test after like doing the stuff with Brown, got an A, got another A. And I think I kept A's for the most part. And it was at a time where, Westlake was like a Black and Asian school for the most part, just because of where it was. We had some Latino folks, but this is kind of that time. And it was just this thing in everybody's head that only the Asian kids were doing good in, math or whatever. And I mean, which is a horrible stereotype for them. But to be very honest and fair, when you saw who the line of the top 10 or 20 in math was it was the Asian kids, and there wasn't a Black kid. And so when I became the top math student at the school, like you know, Brown was really proud of that, and he was proud of that just for me as like a Black boy being able to kind of do it. And Brown is also a Panther. You know, I grew up, like I said, I'm from the same community as Fred Hampton in Maywood. I went to Lafayette, which is where Huey P. Newton went. And fun fact, Elaine Brown is the person who made me write my first book. So I've had connections with those folks, and it's kind of in my blood. But that's who Brown was. And Brown was so good. He was just so good at teaching. And let me just say this for educators. A lot of people think that everything is like Dangerous Minds and you got to like be the person that loves on these kids and do this and do that. But the way Brown did that, he didn't sacrifice knowing his content and his material for like being the cool teacher. He actually didn't care if you liked him or not. He actually said, I'm an adult and you're a child. I don't need you to be my friend. I need you to understand math. And he knew math so well that he would infuse lessons of like Kemet and like Africa and like be like, nah, bro, this didn't come from the Greek. This came from African people that look like you. This is, you know, Imhotep is, and would do that. And then he would say math is it's the universal language. So he taught it like a language class, like almost like a spelling test where we get definitions and have to. I was in the 8th grade and you know, we were doing stuff that was ahead of like high schools. I would learn when I went to high school and they made me take those same classes, and I was protesting because I knew all of it. So that's who Brown was. And Brown just this year retired from West Oakland, not West Oakland Middle, but from Kip Bridge. And I love that man. I wish him his retirement is happy, and I hope he knows how to sit down and enjoy himself.
Me too. Mr. Brown, woof. Mr. Brown, thank you. And so on that same topic, you mentioned your company, Energy Converters, and it sounds very similar to this powerful moment in your life where you were able to take some of the incidents in your life and really turn it into being the top maths performer at your school.
Right.
You know, like you were in shelters, your parents were recovering drug addicts, you went to 10 different elementary schools or different schools. And so can you dive a little bit into that and how at such a young age, especially middle school, right? How were you able to do that? Yes, Mr. Brown was there to mentor you, but you still had to put in a lot of work.
Yeah, man. I made a cartoon. I'll send it to you. It's quick. It's like a 90-second cartoon that's basically explaining survivor's guilt, survivor's remorse without using the term, because I used to love Schoolhouse Rock.
I watched that many times. It's so good.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think so for me, you know, I'm gonna be very honest, because these questions, I get uncomfortable, right? When like I'll give a talk or something and like a Black mom or a dad will come up and be like, man, I want my kids to be like you and this, and it's just like, stop. I'm good at this. I make a lot of mistakes. Like I've made a lot of sacrifices and a lot of mistakes, and I still make them. I just want to preface with that because, you know, our podcast can get right. People can really sound holier than now. I'm trying to figure it out like everybody else. But what I knew was that I didn't want to live the type of life my parents lived, and I wasn't built for that. And I got to give my parents some props, because my father didn't have the tools and the language, and we didn't always get along. We actually didn't get along a lot, but he was like, I'm not raising these kids in the West Side of Chicago. Like I'm taking them here. It was almost our immigrant story where he was, and I love Chicago, but he was like, he loves Chicago, but he is a Chicago dude. He is built for that. I was not. I was a very scared child. I visited so many jails because of my people. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I did not sell dope because I was just some good kid. I didn't sell dope and do that stuff because I was terrified, and I had a dad that was big and that would have beat me. Like, I just want to be very like, you know, and people can take that how they want, but it might have saved my life in a lot of different ways. I would have been off the hook if I would have just been with my mom or just been with my grandmother. And I just want to just say that to homie. And he didn't always do it the right way, but I was one of the kids on the block with a dad, regardless of him being in and out of jail or having a drug problem. So I knew something had to be different for me. In my mind, I told myself, well, how do you do that? Nobody else has done it. So let's do the opposite of what your parents did. You know, my dad went to the military. I come from a military family. My brother is military. My uncle's a military. Dad's a Marine, all that good stuff. And my mother dropped out of high school. She would eventually go back, and her and my dad graduated college together. But I said, okay, I gotta go to college then. By any means, I have to go to college. And I love the University of Kentucky. It's the first school I ever seen. I'm a big basketball fan. I wanted to go to the University of Kentucky. And funny enough, I didn't have enough confidence to even apply for UK. I only applied to schools I knew I could get in. And I wish I had somebody that would have been like, it's not that special, bro. Like, you can get into this school. So that's what I did. And the reason why I brought up the cartoon was, there's a thing that I live by, and I'm not really proud of it, but it's just the truth. When you in the forest or you in the wilderness and it's a bear chasing you and you with a bunch of people, you ain't got to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun the people around you. And I am an Oakland kid through and through. Like, I am, meaning, like, you see a lot of tough stuff. You learn how to take care of yourself. You come up with a mentality that, yo, if your bike gets stolen, it's your fault that your bike got stolen because you left your bike out there and your mama already told you not to let nobody else ride it. Like you have to take responsibility for you. There is no system that's coming to help you. And so what I did was I just found out what you need to do to get into college. So I played basketball. I got forced into debate, and I actually won and was pretty good. I just was seeing who went to school before me and what they did, and I just tried to match it. Okay, let me join this club. Okay, let me keep this GPA high. The classes ain't hard. So I kept like a 383. Let me apply to these schools. And I had to teach myself A through G, like, and this is before the internet. The internet was just coming around, so everything wasn't up there. So you had to get catalogs and do stuff on triplicate and all that. And I did it. I did it at 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old. And then I got in. And once I found out that the California state system didn't care about SAT and SAT and ACT scores if you had a 3.0 GPA cumulative, I said, oh, this is easy money. Like, because I took the SAT and didn't do great. I think it was like really low. And it was better than everybody else that took it with me, but it was still very, very low, which says a lot about the high school I went to. God bless them. So that's what I did. I just stayed really focused. And then when I got to college, I was really focused. Like, I had a good time and all that, but I had to pay for all that stuff on my own. So I took as many units as I could. I had work study and I maxed that out. Here's some game for you. I knew that, let me take a library job, because in quiet times I can study, and university libraries are open late. They're not like your neighborhood library. University libraries are built for college students to go in and research and study. And then I also worked at a shoe store at Bayfair Mall called Shoe Plus, which has been knocked down, because one, I like shoes, and two, like, it was just a cool job. So I was taking like 18 or 20 units, and I was working about, 30 something hours a week. And I did that all 4 years. And I wanted to finish in 4 years. In the 4 years, I knew that if I got off track, if I left, if I got discouraged, that I wouldn't finish. And I had to finish for myself. So, but in my mind, if I didn't finish, I was going to die. And that's really how I operated with it. And that's how I moved.
I'm keep on exhaling because it's so much. And for people who really know you, they know how amazing you are. Like, they could hear you on this podcast and, hear your story, hear your journey, but I'm exhaling because knowing how influential you are, how uplifting you are, you always uplift me, and knowing what you've been through, but turning that into greatness and still contributing and giving back to the community. And so you mentioned, is it Elaine Brown you mentioned?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so was your first book Beyond Grit and Resilience? Is that the first? Yes. And so in that book, you shared a framework that you developed called the Black Achievement Trauma Tax. And when you're talking, it's reminding me of that. And it describes the heavy costs of persisting through high levels of trauma to attain success, either academic or professional success, without really healing. And
Right.
so can you talk more and tell us what that framework, what that framework is and how you developed it?
Yes, you did some really good research. I'm really proud of you. That's dope. Because I've done this before and people hadn't known any of that stuff. So yeah, so basically it's basically a dissertation from when I was doing my doctoral program. And so I had to fight the university to even do it, but that's a whole different story. But basically what it was is I looked at other young people that grew up highly impacted by the crack epidemic like I did, like, and not traumas, but like acute traumas. And I'm saying that I'm not trying to disrespect nobody. I just think that there's a large, if this is the trauma like range, there's a lot of space in between there. So I say acute traumas, meaning that they've witnessed somebody murdered, they've had somebody die, they've witnessed their mother, being abused, like, or something really like something happened to them, and I'm not discrediting like traumas that, somebody made me feel bad because they said something. I'm just saying like, one of my best friends between 8th and 9th grade got murdered in front of his mom's. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like is very different. And so I looked across the country and it did all these interviews and I just told these navigation stories. And I told this navigation story of somebody in Canarsie, this navigation story of somebody else in Oakland and somebody else in Richmond, and did this big survey. And we all had a lot of things in common. Like we all were kind of crazily focused. We all kind of had a little proximity where we would see some success here and there, but the picture wasn't clear. So we had to kind of piece it together, which means we made a lot of mistakes. But the other thing is you get so good at protecting yourself. You get so good at like focusing that you don't really let a lot of room for a lot of things in. So I don't have a ton of friends. I got associates, I got things like that, right? Like, and I think people appreciate me for what I do, but I don't know how many people actually like me. I know there's a lot of people that dislike me too. So I think, but part of it too is because I was so focused on my goals. Like I didn't dump on nobody else. I really don't care what nobody else is doing, to be quite honest with you. I'm just really focused on my thing, but that can make people feel a certain type of way. So if you grow up with some friends, and I did, that I loved, and I'd be like, yo, I'm about to do this social work thing, man. I can get you in the door here. And they looking at it and they looking at me and they looking at stuff and they like, I ain't doing that, right? Like, cause they was making money in a different way. But then later on in life, when I'm where I'm at, it's like, man, you lucky. And it's like, bro, I wanted you laughed at me. You know what I'm saying? I love you. You thought, but I was corny then, right? So, I think, so the Black achievement trauma tax though is like, so once you get that success, then you kind of looking at stuff and you like, wait, was I smart? Or was I smart for a Black kid? Was I hood smart? Meaning like, how I got a 383 GPA, I'm in line. I wouldn't have got valedictorian at Emory if I hadn't left, but I would have been in the top 5 or 6 maybe. And but then I go to Cal State Hayward. I ain't go to Harvard. I ain't go to Howard. Like I went to Cal State Hayward and I'm remedial everything. I'm remedial English and remedial math. Wait, how does that work? So part of that tax is you start to question how good you really are. Like, wait, am I good at this or am I good for this? When you want to just be good. The other thing that came is that it's difficult for you to make long lasting relationships and connections. So for me, like, I get this question all the time. Why you ain't got no kids? When you gonna get some kids? When you gonna get married? When you gonna do this? And I'm like, look, if that happens, it happens, but a relationship has never been a priority to me. It is never. And it's interesting because I don't have anything negative to say about any woman I've ever dated. I've dated incredible women, but I've always been very upfront. Look, this is what I'm focused on. This is what I'm trying to do. This is where I'm at. If you can handle that, we can rock and we can chill. If not, that's cool, but I'm telling you, and I think a lot of times it gets you the first day because it sounds like game. It sounds like it's like you like, you know what I'm saying? Like trying to spit game and that's what they want to hear. But then somebody that really like you, dig you and want to kick it on a Friday night at 10 and you like, I'm gonna be working. Like I'm studying, like I'm doing this. And it didn't process, right? But it never really bothered me. And I think to a lot of people, they feel like I'm standoffish. And it's not that I'm standoffish, it's that I grew up in the wilderness, man. In the wilderness, you not trusting everything. You can't trust every berry on every bush because that might be poisonous. you can't trust every little creature that look cute, because that might turn out to be like a ravenous, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like something that will eat you. And so I've always stayed focused, and I've always kind of been there, but it does make it a little difficult to connect, I think, with people with certain things, especially when you feel like you can see all the angles, and it's not anybody's fault. It just is what it is. And I would even say the biggest blessing for me is I started my social work career working with kids in foster, but also kids on the spectrum. And I saw a lot of myself in those kids on the spectrum, because we're very similar. And I wouldn't be surprised if I actually later on had somebody look at it and they're like, you got a little bit of Asperger's in there. Because I don't always read the facial expressions. I'm not really concerned about the facial expressions, but it makes me really good at my job. It made me really good at every job I've had around, oh, we got to go tell the people this. It's a hard truth. Well, they need to know the truth. I'll take it. Even when I worked at the district, I was the one that's like, man, no, let's tell them exactly what it is. Show them they kids' scores. Let them be mad. They should be mad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are we trying to sugarcoat this when people trying to make their kids, trying to get the best for their kids? So the Black Achievement Trauma Tax just says that when you have persevered and you have never dealt with those things, and you just kind of moving forward and moving on, like that trauma don't go away. It just goes dormant. And then it starts to show up in your life later. And when you 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, and that was something that happened to all those people. So, you know, you get you a therapist, you get those things to, because you had to be one kind of way. And how I survived what got me to the dance won't necessarily take me to the next level. But here's the honest truth though, as well, Miss Moses, is I like who I am. I like some of those things. Some of those things I don't necessarily want to change. And I think that, you know, but those are decisions that you get to make, and who you get to be. But there's going to be sacrifices for any type of greatness. If you want to be great, be prepared to sacrifice. Like greatness don't just fall out the sky. Like there's a reason why everything's not great. Everything's not excellent. Everything's not perfect. I know we're in a day and age where we like to tell everybody that that's excellence. That's black. That's this, that's that. No, there's levels to it. There's levels to it. And being a professional isn't practicing something until you get it right. Being a professional is practicing so much that you can't get it wrong. And that takes a lot of dedication.
So good. So good. And I have a question.
Yes,
Where are the babies?
I just answered this question.
No. But I asked this from like being funny, but also serious, because I know how influential you will be for the children, right? And so is there a point in your life where you feel like okay, I worked hard, I've sacrificed this, I've sacrificed my social, now I really want to focus in on my love life. I really want to focus in on building a life with someone. Do you see that in your future for yourself?
So you want the short answer or the real answer? I give you both of them. I give you both of them. The short answer is no. The real answer is I've never been the type that's like, I want kids or don't want kids. Like that depends on the woman that I end up with, that I marry. It depends on a lot. The woman that I end up with, right? And if I'm dating somebody and I'm like, man, and we want to marry each other, like I've never been like, I want to be married or not want to be married. I think when you start out that way, then you want the wedding, not the marriage. So it's like, if I meet somebody and they make me want to, and we make each other want to be married to each other, then we would get married. And if I'm with that woman and we are married and I'm looking at her and I'm just like, I want to procreate with this person, then we will. But my easy answer of no, because I don't like having to explain that ish all the time. I didn't curse, I caught it. But part of that too is you got to understand, man, I raised my siblings. I'm 6 and 8 years older than my siblings respectively. I didn't have siblings growing up. They were like my children. And I was like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old until my parents really got to that place. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't think I had my own room, like my own space until like I was about to like, till I was like firmly in high school. Right. Like, and so for me, I was just kind of done. Like at that point, I was just like, when I turned 18, like I left the nest. I've never been a mama's boy. I'm not a daddy's boy. I'm not a big family guy. To be really honest, like I was raised that a man is supposed to, and I'm not saying the way I was raised was right, but I'm just telling you what I respected early and what I tried to live out. That a man should be able to stand on his own too. That a man should not be having to be living with their mama when they grown. Like it ain't cute bringing a pretty woman home that you like, and you got to introduce them to your parents unless it's your house and your parents staying with you. Like I just didn't want that. So I just focused on, I left at 18. I went back briefly when I lost my financial aid, and that was only for like a month or two, and then came back and stayed and couch surfed and stayed at my boy's house to finish college. So, you know, I've just always been pretty independent. So I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of things that I prioritize. I've never prioritized a relationship. But if I meet a woman that makes me it is possible for me to meet a woman that makes me say, this is now the priority. And then I'd put the same energy that I have in my businesses and my companies into that person, and we'll see what happens. But I'm not worried about that at all.
Well, at least there's hope there. That makes me happy. And so
why? What's wrong with being alone?
No, there's nothing wrong with it. And, you know, I support however you choose to live your life. And that's what it's all about. I really want people to lead a life they love, period. Mm-hmm. However, I know a lot of parents who are not good parents. Mm-hmm. And when I see someone and know someone who I know would really just raise some really great individuals and that will contribute to this world, that's when I'm just like, oh, you sure? But hey, I'm all about you living your life. And on this, I have 3 guiding principles myself.
Yes, ma'am.
Courage, clarity, and consistency. And what it sounds like you have is a lot of clarity throughout your life. It sounds like you've had a lot of clarity. And so I really want to learn more about this clarity. Yeah. How do you sustain, like, is there something that you do annually? Do you do like an annual plan for yourself? Like, what do you do to have clarity in your life so that you can get to that level of success, or that you have gotten to that level of success with?
We went to the Henry Robinson one year, and when we were living there, and we were late for whatever time thing. And I watched these people tell my dad, my very, very large dad, who used to knock people out in jail, in the streets, and who was really respected where he came from. I watched this little white dude tell him what time he had to be in front of his son. I was able to be clear that that would never be my life, ever. It's just not. And I remember there's another shelter where they were teaching people, this is like the 90s. So like the AIDS epidemic is still around, and needles and all that. My parents never did that, but they were doing a training in the Salvation Army about how to clean your needles so you wouldn't pass AIDS or HIV to somebody. I remember the smell in that shelter. Anytime stuff get hard, I remember what that shelter smelled like. I remember being on that bunk, holding on to all my stuff, because it was dope fiends in there, and my parents included, and they would steal your stuff. So that's one. That's the foundation. Now, since I've been 15, 16, at the end of every year, I set goals. What do I want to do? What do I want to accomplish? I write them down. And then I started to set 5-year goals and 3-year and 1 year. And I just would, put them down somewhere, and I wouldn't even check in with them a lot. But once I put them down, I kind of worked towards those things. And I am, the one thing I do have, I mean, it might be a defect. It might not be. I think addiction is hereditary. I have 2 addictive parents, 2 addict parents who, are in recovery and work, they've been clean for a long time, but you're an addict forever. I think I also have an addictive personality. When I want to see something happen, I am obsessed over it. So when I got to Teach for America, and I wasn't the traditional teacher, and I sounded different and talked different than everybody else in that place, and then I wanted the Oakland people, I wanted the people that was Black that looked like me, I had an addictive personality that we was going to make some good noise, and that my people was going to get to be themselves and be authentic. They didn't need me to do all this extra teachy stuff. They needed, I actually tapped more into my social work skills, which I think helped the teachers that I was supporting a lot. Now, that don't mean I was perfect at it or whatever the case is, but my clarity comes that there's a million ways to skin a cat, but if you make a plan and you consistently and you follow that plan through, that good things will happen. And so I've followed that. I've trusted that. And my faith in God, I've always, my grandmother had incredible faith. When my grandmother was sick and dying, this woman, how everybody want to go to heaven, but don't nobody want to die. She was ready. And she says, you got to let me go. I earned this. And so that lady taught me how to die. And she taught me that you should earn your death. Like you should leave empty, leave with nothing left in the tank, be ready to go. And so those are the things. Now, I've also made a lot of mistakes that dance around in my head. Like people have harmed me and I've done harm to people. There's things that I can never, ever take back. There's pain that I've caused people, whether I meant to or not, or whatever the case, like it happens. And when you talk about that consistency and that clarity, the brain is like any other part of your body. When it hurts, it tries to heal itself. So if you scratch yourself, your body will naturally try to, it'll scab it up so it can heal itself. Well, your brain does that too. And I remember being in the Bahamas. I was on this boat by myself with these people, these locals, and it was beautiful people. It was drinks. I wasn't worried about how much stuff cost. Like I had a little bit of money, you know what I'm saying? Like it was at my spot and I'm in the middle of the ocean. It's the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And my brain said, oh, we got shelter. We got food. We ain't worried about bills. You kicking it, you big chilling. Oh, let me heal everything right now. And that thing knocked me out on that boat. And I went back to my condo for 3 days. And like, I had never been depressed. I had been depressed. I was depressed when I tore up my knee and couldn't play basketball no more. But I had never felt that kind of depression. I had never felt that feeling. And it was everything coming back to you. So I got a lot of clarity there too. Like, yo, all right, man, you're not going to be perfect in this. You got to be okay with not being perfect. And you got to figure out what your goal is and drive towards it. And you got to get to a place where you really don't care how people think about you. And I think there's a younger version of me that didn't really care at all. And I think that over the last few years, the only reason that stuff has been able to bother me is because I'm like, oh man, I think this is legacy time. You know what I'm saying? You kind of worry about that. And my younger self is looking at me like I'm a punk, like, just like, bro, like, what are you doing? Like, let's, you know what I'm saying? But I wanted to be honest and vulnerable with you on this because it's you. And I think that that's what you want from this. Heal that stuff that happened to you and move on. Like, you can't change it. It's there. It's going to be there forever. And it makes you who you are. But we live in a time right now where everybody is fawning and acting like they perfect. Everybody is like, and it's socially it's trendy. Well, what's the social thing that's trending right now? Let's find out where you messed up on that and let's do it. And I think it's causing a lot of people a lot of anxiety. And in that consistency and that clarity, I'll say this because I know I'm giving you long answers, but you can edit it. It's giving you good material. You want this from your people. You got a problem when they don't say enough. I would just say this. There will be a time where people will look back at our generation and look at social media and they will say, y'all let kids just use this? Like you just let them use this? It's like letting kids just have cocaine. Like you ever heard, that in Coca-Cola used to have cocaine in it? Like Freud used to like prescribe cocaine. Like, and now we like, are you serious? Like you prescribed what? There will be a time where people will look back. They will have like parental advisory stickers around social media stuff because it is changing how people think. It is rewiring brains. It is a very, very powerful, powerful tool. And, I just feel like that's going to happen. But clarity and consistency has been a key thing for me. I've been consistent as I've been clear. Like you got to get up every day and you got to do this thing and you got to take a step forward every single day. People ask me this when I'm writing a book or a dissertation. I'll just say, just write something every day. Even if it's a sentence, a half a sentence, do it every single day. And maybe that's because of the military upbringing and all that stuff, but you need some systems and rules in your life or it will be chaos. Now, you can be creative in chaos and create good things. But at some point, if you want to get to that goal, you got to go for it. You got to be consistent because when you hit that speed bump, when you hit that thing that shakes you to your core, that rattles you, that makes you feel like you a fake and a phony, like you're not built for this, you need systems that you can lean on so your brain don't keep lying to you and you stop doing the thing. Your brain will lie to you. It will tell you you can't do this thing. And so everything is impossible until somebody does it. So that's my long-winded answer on clarity. And I also add in consistency for you to knock one of them out for you.
Awesome. Thank you. And you're 100% right. You mentioned that the goal of this podcast is to be real and really showcase the downfalls that we've had in our life, but they're actually fuel, as you mentioned earlier, into supporting us with our careers and with our whatever we want out of our lives, right? And how do we convert that, as you say, in your business into the lives that we want? And so this podcast is I really have noticed a trend amongst my group of friends, amongst just the general public in regards to, there's a point in our lives where when we're younger, we have these big dreams. We have this vision that we want for our lives. But then there's a point where we give up. We just throw in the towel and we do the opposite of what your grandma said. And we eventually leave this earth without giving it our all. And so I really want this podcast to motivate and rejuvenate millennials who are on the cusp of giving up on their dreams to continue to push forward and really define what they want for themselves out of this life. And so with that, what can you say to folks who might be at that crossroads in their life where they're like, I'm about to just continue to work this 9 to 5 and my dream, I'm just going to put it on the back burner. What can you say for them?
I believe in a 9 to 5. I believe in it. I actually think it's selfish to just be like, I'm quitting and I'm following this dream, right? Like I have a 9 to 5, 5 to 9 rule. Your 9 to 5, whether it might not be fully 9 to 5, maybe it's 8 to 4, whatever. But your 9 to 5 needs to pay your bills. And I say this as a dad who would get into it with people at work and tell the boss what he ain't gonna do. And now you ain't got a job and we ain't got a house. So you got to pay bills and sustain yourself. Now, if you're in a situation where your parents got you or whatever, you highly blessed. I don't know that life. I don't know that world. So I don't dabble in things I don't understand. And then your 5 to 9 is yours. How are you using that 5 to 9? Are you just like, I'm not telling you not to relax or whatever, but how are you actively investing in yourself? Like people was like, you spent all that time getting a doctor. And I was like, the years was going to go by anyway. I'm gonna get older anyway. Like I'm gonna spend these 4 years doing something anyway. Why don't I make sure that there's something at the end of that tunnel that I can kind of have? So all of my companies have started as a 5 to 9 thing that I've invested in. So when I left TFA and worked at Oakland Unified School District in the superintendent's office, I loved that job. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my purpose. It was just like, okay, I can get some skills here. I love what I do and I get to give back. But when I'm off, I'm building, what did I like about this and this job and what didn't I like? Instead of complaining about the boss and all that stuff, it's like, what would I do differently? Can I do that differently? And I wrote out the plan for Energy Converters. Now I have 2 companies. Energy Converters, the nonprofit stuff, is actually just a program that I have. That's my nonprofit work. Energy Converters LLC is where I run my speeches, my talks, my podcasts, my books, like anything I get paid to do, video creation, whatever. And so I had to do my job so I could pay bills. And sometimes you was up at 12 or 1 or 2 in the morning, like learning this stuff. And this generation has something that a lot of other ones did not. You have YouTube University. You have a free thing that can teach you almost anything. If I had some of this stuff when I was younger, like if I had those little shoe selling apps, my brother, my homie would be so rich right now because he was doing that stuff without those tools. And it's really about how bad do you want it? Now, here's the thing. If you're willing to give up on it that easy, maybe that's not your dream. Maybe you need to spend some more time thinking about it. Like, what's the thing that you just can't live without doing? And what's the thing that you think would define you? And here, let me tell you something too. It's okay if what your passion is ain't the thing that you make money from. You just got to figure out a way to do it. So, but now I'm talking to you. It ain't the system. It ain't that job. It ain't that boss. Now, you can say these things and you could be right. But whatever you tell yourself over and over, you will be right. So if you keep telling yourself you can't do it, you are absolutely right, you genius. But if you say that I can, then you absolutely right too. And I think that you have to have a heart for it, and you have to be resilient, and you have to push forward. If it's worth having, it's worth fighting for. Let me dispel one last rumor. They say when you find what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That is BS, is craziness. Like, I love doing podcasts. I like doing this, and I'm sure you do. But there's a whole swath of things that you have to learn that's really work related, and getting stuff signed and making sure people know this and dealing with paperwork. Like, you just got to be an adult. Some stuff just come down to being an adult. And I'll say this. My grandmother lived a simple life, man. A simple woman who was a nurse up until she couldn't be a nurse no more. We didn't have a lot of bread. We was on welfare, but she fed a lot of people, and God always provided. And I knew she knew that I would be successful because she had faith, but she couldn't have imagined or pictured what I get to do. I'm talking to you from my studio that's inside my house that I own. And this is the small studio. I have a full studio downstairs with a whole bunch of stuff in it. And like, my grandmother didn't know what a self-care day was, a mental health day, none of that stuff, right? You know what I'm saying? And I'm not disparaging this generation. I'm not disparaging my generation, because I'm part of that generation as well. I never did it, but what I'm saying is that there are ways for you to take care of yourself, but a lot of times people in our generation and lower abuse it. Like, they just abuse it. Like, every day is a self-care day. Every day is this and every day is that. And it's just like, and I was able to win in this generation so much easier than I would have won in that other one, because I took advantage of all of that. You don't want to work, I'll take that shift. You don't want to, the boss said their door is always open if you got questions. You scared to go in there? I'm not. Like, you don't want to take on that extra project because you feel like it ain't worth it? I will. You won't do the internship because they're not paying you? Hey, man, I'll take it. Listen, if Oprah said that I could be her intern, her unpaid intern right now, I'd do it for free, because it's not about the money. And I'm saying this to somebody who was dumb broke. Excuse my language. Dumb broke. I'm not saying it to some privileged kid that lived in the suburbs who parents took care of stuff. What I'm saying is, take the internship and the job at Pizza Hut, man. My senior year, man, I sold CDs because that's when CD burners came out. I moved to Stockton. It was $5 for a regular copy and $10 if they wanted like a quote unquote Oakland mix, because Stockton kids wanted to feel like they was in it. I also did whatever internship I could do, and I worked at Papa John's, man, and I maintained my grades. Like, I wanted it, and it's okay if you don't. That's cool, but it's somebody that do. And so, however you get to it. And if you happy in your life, don't worry about none of this advice. I'm just telling you from my perspective and what worked for me. You can do with that what you will. But I wanted to be fly. I wanted to be able to have nice shoes. I wanted to, like, you know what I'm saying? There were just things that I wanted that I could never have. I used to wear Salvation Army clothes. So dressing nice was something that meant a lot to me. And damn it, I wasn't going to do nothing illegal to get it. So that's what I had to do, and I got it.
And yes, please don't call us lucky. When you see us,
right.
You see Dr. Cole in his nice house, when you see us with our nice clothes, do not call us lucky, because this is from hard work, consistency, having clarity. You said that you were 15 and 16 making goals every year for yourself. Like, that is so powerful. So yeah, don't call it luck, because it's not. But yeah, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation. And I'm going to wrap with some rapid fire questions.
Okay, I'll answer them quickly.
Are you ready?
Go.
You like, I stay ready. All right, number 1, zodiac sign.
Leo.
Favorite artist and type of music.
Stevie Wonder, Janet Jackson, Black music, whether it's rap, R&B, soul, jazz.
Favorite place you've traveled to.
Paris.
If your younger self can meet you as an adult, you touched on this a little bit, what would they be most proud of?
That we did the stuff we said we was going to do. He'd also tell me stop being a punk, though. Like, don't let your feelings get in the way of the goals that we had, bro. I need you to be a beast out here.
Do you believe in the power of manifestation?
To a degree.
Say
I
more.
believe in it in the way that I think it was intended to be, like where you work towards something and you picture it, you vision it, and you work towards it. I don't believe it in this way of like, I'm gonna go on Instagram and just say I'm manifesting.
Mm-hmm. It takes work, right?
Yeah, and that manifestation on Instagram ain't for you. That's for other people. So like, no, you have to be working towards that thing. But I believe I do believe in the law of attraction and manifestation and all that stuff.
Got it. What's a project you're working on currently?
To take our work international. We had a goal. First goal was to do really well in Oakland and California. We did that. Then all the places that I grew up, so Oakland, Kentucky, and Chicago, did that. Then nationally, we've done that with over 14 cohorts across the country: Milwaukee, Indy, Stockton, Chicago, Houston, whatever, Memphis. And now it's to do it internationally. I would love to do some work in Paris, South Africa, Ghana, London. So working on that.
Dope. What age do you want to retire, and what are you doing to get there if you want to retire?
Yeah, I'll never retire. I think that I might stop. What I will do is I won't be doing the day-to-day stuff for, a lot of my work, and I actually think if you do this thing right, you get paid a lot more and you do a lot less because they're paying you for your expertise and your wisdom and not for your labor. And that's been true. Like I've gotten to a point where I can do a video that's, somebody will book me to do a video for $5,000 and it's less than a minute. And it's like, yeah, that didn't take it that long, but there's a skill set that took years to build. So no retirement, but minimal work, maximum payout, and freedom.
Love it. Last question.
Yes.
What does no limit mean to you?
I'm very literal. I told you I think I'm on the spectrum. It just means there's no limits. It means that the only limits are the ones that you set. And so, but I do think some things do have limits. But what it means is set a damn intention and move towards it. And if you fail, then at least you got some honor with it. But I would end you with the no limit piece of saying that failure is so much part of the process that you should be grateful for it. You should be grateful for it. And if you set a goal and a dream and you never fell at it at all in any way, it was a whack goal or dream to start with.
Love it. Appreciate you so much, Dr. Cole. Appreciate your friendship. Appreciate your consistency with me as I build my own, whatever this is. And thank you for sharing all those little nuggets with us. Before we stop and go on with our evenings, our 5 to 9s, is there anything you'd like to leave the audience? Where can they reach out to you?
No, I just want to say thank you. No, because I'm trying to leave social media. At some point, I'm gonna leave all of it and change my number. And everybody, I feel like social media makes you way too accessible. I don't think everybody should be accessible like that. But I want to take this opportunity, instead of talking about me, to just talk about you and just appreciate you. And and I've also seen what you and your family are trying to do and what y'all are trying to march towards, you and your husband and your child. And I've had friends that have gone through that process, and it's a tough one. It's very hard. And I think to share it publicly like you're doing, I think it takes a special person. So my prayers are with you and your husband, and I wish you all the best of luck in what you are trying to do. May God's will be done. But I think what you're building is incredible. I see your face and your kid every day. When I go on, I try not to go on social media, but you pop up when I do go on there. And that young lady has so much personality and always has. And she you got a dope thing that you've built for yourself. I'm very proud of you, Chasman, and keep going and keep being you. You've come a very long way, and I feel some kinship because I think we're similar in a lot of ways. And I think we understood each other at a time when I don't think either of us felt like a lot of people either understood us or we put that in our head. So I'm proud of you.
Wow. Thank you. Means a lot. Means a lot.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Hope you have a great evening. 5 to 9, y'all. Go build something great. And I will be talking to y'all soon. Peace.